Welcome to Mad About Money, the show that is mad about money. I'm Maddy Alexander-Grout, and I am here with Helen Dewdney, who is a consumer champion, a consumer expert, an author, a radio star, a TV star, an all-round damn good person. Helen, my love, it's so great to have you on. How are you?
Thank you for having me here.
You are more than welcome. So, Helen, first of all, tell our listeners who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm the complaining cow, and I help people with their consumer rights. So that might be via books, maybe via my blog where there's loads of sort of free information. And I do it on the telly and I'm on the radio and in print, just to help them not get fobbed off and get their money back when they're owed it.
So you're just fucking fabulous then. You just do everything.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, I suppose I'm a fighter. I'm a fight for what's right. Amazing.
And so you should, because so many times consumers get screwed over and because they don't know what they're doing.
Absolutely. So that's the problem, is that people don't know their rights. And then if a company says to them, we don't give refunds on sale items, or we only give a repair or replacement, but it's actually less than 30 days and you're entitled to a full refund. It's all those kinds of things that people just don't know.
No, and that's important, because we are all consumers all the time. We're consuming everything, even down to things like gas and electricity bills and phone and broadband. People don't really think about the fact that we're consuming those things, but we are. So it is really important. And what you do is something that is really needed. And I'm very excited that you're going to be hanging around in the Mad About Money app to be our specialist. I love that. So what is your story, Helen? What is your money story?
I'm not sure if I have a money story, really. Just that
you do. Everyone's got a money story.
I was lucky that I was sort of brought up to save. So I did save, and I was able to buy a flat, which, a million years ago, because I'm old. But it was
You're not old.
It was just after the recession of the late 80s, I suppose, because I bought it in 94. But you think of what that flat's worth now. There's no way that people could buy. I bought it on 3 times my nursery nurse salary.
Wow.
And put down £1,000, £1,500, something like that. Which is just ludicrous. No one can do that now. We've got to get your garage, and that's London. That's Greater London. So I was lucky in that respect that I was able to buy right back then, which people just can't do now. But I was lucky in that I was taught to save, so I do save quite well. But my story for starting this was really that I've always just complained. My mother would say from when I was born. But it was probably from about 11, because you may well remember Jackie magazine.
Yes.
Well, I complained to Jackie magazine because I got a letter printed in it, because I was talking about alternatives to animal experiments, and it was the Humane Research Trust, and it wasn't a star letter, so it got £1. It was £1 for having your letter printed, which shows how old I am. And they didn't send it to me. So I got really cross about that, and wrote to them and said, "Oi, you haven't given me the £1." And they then sent me the £1. And then, but from that day, I can still remember thinking, I paid for a stamp for that letter. I mean, now obviously it would be an email, but in those days, in the olden days, you sent a letter. And I remember thinking, well, whatever the stamp was, that's a percentage gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not enough, that's not right. And so I think that's what started my journey really sort of on complaining. And then when I was at school, I started a magazine, and as you do, and the first one went out fine, sold that for 50p or whatever it was. And then in the second one, at the time, girls were playing boys' PE games. We were playing, football and whatever, but the boys weren't playing the girls' games. They weren't playing netball. And it seemed to me that we were always playing football, and I didn't like football. But I also thought the principle of the thing there, it's fine that, ahead of my time, it's fine that we were playing football and we were playing the boys' games as it was then. But why weren't they playing the other things? Because it actually meant that we were missing out on never playing netball. And so I printed a letter, and my father, who's a teacher, said, back in those days, there was long before the Equality Act, said, I wonder what the Sex Discrimination Act would have to say about that. So I thought, I wonder too, and I put it in an article in the magazine. And what the Sex Discrimination Act had to say about that was that the staff closed the magazine down. They didn't like me doing that.
Oh,
that's my phone ringing. Do you want to pause?
Let's pause.
Yeah. So this yeah. So lots of nodding before interruption. So I put in the article, I wonder what the Sex Discrimination Act have to say about this, about treating boys differently to girls and sort of unfairly. And I got shut down, which was my first experience of censorship, I think. Excuse me, which annoyed me intently.
Yeah, I bet.
Because now you'd expect there to be a conversation about all that. I mean, you wouldn't expect that to be happening. It would be about equality and the Equality Act of 2010. But right back then, there was nothing really. But there was no conversation. It was just closed down. But it did bring about change. And that's what, although I was really annoyed about losing my magazine that was bringing me an income, I was very annoyed. I was really pleased, about the fact that change had happened. So there was change in PE. I can't remember what it was now that happened, but we started playing the games that they had stopped us playing. So for me, that was like, well, this is what you have to do. You have to put your head above the parapet. If you're going to say things that are right and just and question people, just because you're a teacher doesn't mean you're right. And the good teachers will say the same. The teachers will say, question, question, question. So I did, and it got me into trouble, and it still does. Particularly working in local authority, questioning things gets you into trouble. We've always done it that way. We've always wasted people's money. Should we do it this way now? So that's, I suppose, that's the story of sort of complaining, and to why I then fought, because then I went into children's services. So I became a nursery nurse, wasn't a very good one. Went back to uni as a mature student when I was 24, and did a drama and education degree, and then went to development of toy libraries, and then I managed a play service and the children's fund, which was all about play, empowering children, and then doing participation and consultation. So that was very much about fighting for children's rights. And then I had my own child, and then I set up the blog as a hobby, and then the hobby took off. and
you're just for a living. And now you're a professional complainer. I mean,
no, I'm not, and I really hate that term. So
I know you do. That's the only reason I said it, because I just want to wind you up. It's funny. It's
not my profession to complain.
No,
it's my profession.
It's not. It's to educate other people.
Complain effectively. Yeah,
absolutely. But I'm assuming that you do it yourself as well.
Oh, I do because I have to. But
people, what's the best thing that you've ever? What's your biggest win?
Well, it's interesting, because people quite often ask me that, what's your biggest win? But quite often I forget. Once I've done it, it's gone. What I remember are the stories. The stories like, for example, taking Tesco to court. That was over 40 quid. That was about 40 pounds. But it was about the principle of the thing. But because it was court, and because it was Tesco, and obviously I won, that means more than getting money, because you see that sort of consumer champions getting 5,000 back for this kitchen and 20,000 pounds back for the kitchen, but the principles are the same.
Yeah.
And for some people, not being able to get their kettle, if their kettle's broken, and that's going to be 30 quid, but actually the company should pay them back the £30 because it needs a repair. That £30 for some families could mean the difference between whether they eat that week or not. So to me, it's not about the amount, it's about the principle, because it's the same, and you do just follow the same rules, whether it's a huge amount or a small amount. It's the same rules. It's no I don't think you're any better or different for getting big amounts. So yes, I have got the thousands and thousands of pounds, but for me, the big ones are going to take companies to court for 40 quid.
So I'm assuming that cost you money to take them to court.
It did, but I made them pay for it, obviously. So
were you that confident you were going to win, though?
Yes, because now it would cost you 25 quid.
And what's the story behind that? Because our listeners won't necessarily have heard the story before.
No, well, it's quite a while ago now. It's in 2012, 13. And it was when Tesco's was starting their triple up, their double up. It was the doubling up of club card points. And they were doing it in sections. They don't do that now, but it was in sections. So in the drinks aisle, or the clothing, or children's toys. And because it was Christmas and they did doubling up for children's toys, obviously, as a mother of a 3-4-year-old at the time, with a birthday soon after, I thought, right, I'm going to use the whole lot. I'm going to use the whole lot on, children's toys, and I'm going to get, say 50%. And they didn't allow for the site going absolutely mad and sort of crashing. And so I had the codes, and of course the days ran out because it was only like running over 3 days. And I'd emailed them to say, because we say everything in writing. I'd emailed them to say, I'm trying these codes and it's not working. And they said, okay, use your credit card, take this email as evidence that we'll refund you, and we'll refund you. So I then emailed them afterwards and said, I've used my credit card for 40 quid, doubled up to, it should be 80 quid. And they didn't give it to me. And I went, look, it's here in black and white. You said you would give me the money. And they ignored it. And it's like, well, that is such clear evidence. See you in court.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so I saw them in court. It's that I didn't see them in court because obviously they didn't turn up 40 quid. They did the day before try and say, here's the money, but it didn't include the goodwill gesture, because when they said use your credit card, we'll also give you a goodwill gesture, because of the time that you spent trying to get through and all the rest of it. And so when I went to court, I got that awarded for me. So it was worth it. I mean, it took a lot of time and effort, but it was the principle of the thing. And when I wrote that up on my blog, lots of people came to me and said, oh, that happened to me on a tenner here and a tenner there. So for me, it was like, well, then actually they've made thousands of pounds, haven't they? All those little tenners, because those people didn't know that actually they should complain about that they didn't get their doubling up. You offer the doubling up, give it.
Yeah. That's mental, isn't it? Like, how do they feel like, as such a big company, how do they feel they can get away with that?
Yeah. So those kinds of stories mean more than the ones where I've got big amounts of people.
Yes.
I tend to forget those.
Yeah.
They haven't got the principle and the meaning behind them as much as others, I think.
No. What's the weirdest thing anybody's ever complained about that you know of?
Well, I did do an article in the Metro last year, and I asked people for their stories about what people had complained about, and they were just hilarious. I am not an advocate of the the customer is always right, because they're not.
No,
I mean, some of them were a woman sold tassel earrings, so like feathery and fluffy sort of earrings, and somebody sent them back and said they were too tassely. What?
Too tassely.
Bearing in mind, there's a picture on the website. There was somebody else who made fingerprint jewelry. So like a necklace would have a
I have one of those. Two of those actually. Yeah, two.
Right. Well, you'll love this story. We've got the fingerprint on it.
Yeah.
So particularly for elderly people that get the fingerprint, put it on, and you've got it close to them because they're unique. There's the clue. Fingerprints are unique. Somebody emailed her to say it's not like the one in the picture. No, I used the fingerprint that you sent me. I sent you the kit, you sent it to me, I've used that, but it's not like the one in the picture. I mean, where do you go with that? I mean, so she said, I'm even more specific in my terms and conditions, but you wouldn't have thought you had to explain to somebody who was having a fingerprint jewelry. Fingerprinted.
I mean, the lady who did mine, she even explained to me that because my child was so young at the time, that it might not come out as well as if they were slightly older. They generally tend to kind of arm you with certain things.
Yeah.
But that, it's like Yeah, no, that's just
They're just
stupid.
fun. And the one that made me laugh, I think the most, well, there were quite a few actually, but one that made me laugh a lot was somebody had run an events company, and she's done an event in a zoo. And brilliant, what a brilliant idea, unusual. So she's done this corporate event in the in the zoo, and everyone said, fabulous idea, really well organized, it's really lovely. One delegate complained because a monkey had thrown shit at him.
That's amazing. It's like going to Lovely and complaining that they take your car aerial off. I mean, it's kind of expected. Like,
yeah. So she wrote back and said, "I'm really sorry that you had this experience. I'll ask the monkey to comment." I mean, just so
that's so
yeah.
funny.
I mean, the one that I had that I just thought, I'm not going to help you with that one, was when somebody said, "I've been banned from Tesco because I've been caught shoplifting, but I want to go back in." I'm not helping you with that one.
Oh my God.
I know there's quite a lot of things, particularly at that time, but I'm sorry.
What is wrong
people
with
nicking
people?
Stuff puts the prices up for everybody else. I know.
I did a TikTok actually about because I with my TikToks do a lot of stories about commenting about things that have gone on in the news, and there was a woman who basically was stealing from the self-checkout, and she didn't think it was stealing because she'd basically just like taken a couple of extra things and just put them straight into her bag rather than scanning them. And it was just like, how do you not know that is stealing? Yeah. And the amount of people who were like, good on her, well done, like that's amazing, like how she's done the best thing ever, like don't you steal from self-checkouts? I'm like, no. I mean, I might occasionally take a carrier bag. Not gonna lie, I do really feel quite strongly about not having to pay for carrier bags.
How many bags did you have accidentally hit? None.
I mean, yeah. Oh no. But over the space of a year, I've probably stolen maybe 15 carrier bags. I mean, that's probably not that bad. It's probably not going to make Tesco's go under. I don't know why we're picking on Tesco's. I feel a bit bad for them, but we do have a bit of a thing about Tesco's at the moment, don't we? We've been discussing their washing tablets and
and all sorts. They've been talking about it's been in the news also recently about that last year Tesco's was saying that they weren't going to stock some Heinz products because they were charging Tesco too much and all the rest of it. And then when everyone was saying, "Oh, great, good on Tesco for holding out," but when it came to it a few months later, Tesco was charging exactly the same for those products as Sainsbury's and all the others. So they didn't get any better deal, but they did it. Did they do it? Did they or not do it for PR for everyone to say, "Oh, that's really brilliant. Oh, they must have got a good deal because now they're stocking Heinz again." Don't know, because it's exactly the same price as Sainsbury's. So that was picked up on the back end of last year. So that's quite interesting.
There are some interesting things about the supermarkets. Like people don't realise as well. I mean, I did a TikTok about what the most expensive supermarket was and what the cheapest one was the other day, and so many people are like, well, my supermarket does this for this cheaper, and it's like, yes, it's an average. They don't just work out like every single product and add them all together. Like, I mean, but yeah, it's crazy. There are so many things that supermarkets do, and people don't complain enough. Yeah. And I feel like people don't complain because they feel like it's embarrassing. But
yeah, that's a big one. A lot of people think it's embarrassing. It's because they don't know their rights, or they think it'll take too much time and effort. So there's been quite a lot of research to show that the amount of complaints over the last couple of years have been going up, but it's taking more time to do it. So quite often it's not getting resolved at the first time. So people give up. People give up and they go, I can't be bothered to do it. And that's what companies rely on.
I'm known within my circle of friends to be a bit of a complainer when it comes to food. So not kind of, if something doesn't taste nice, that's my fault, I've ordered the wrong thing. But it's like if something comes out and it's cold, or something comes out and it's wrong, or often I'll order something like extra cheese and they haven't put any cheese on, and I'm like, what? Like, I mean, I feel that is my right, because I have specifically said I want something to be extra on my plate, and I'm happy to pay for it, and then it doesn't come. And then people are like, "Oh, Maddy, you're so embarrassing. Why are you complaining about that?" And I'm like, well, if I'm going to pay for something, I want it to be good. And this, I mean, God, I went out for dinner the other day and we had the worst food and the worst service. And the funny thing was, I was actually being paid to be in there as an influencer. I was doing a video to promote Taste Card. So I'd gone in there and I'd said to this restaurant, I'm not going to name and shame them, but I'd said, I mean, there are lots of restaurants on Taste Card. You could go and have a look.
Yeah.
But I'd gone in working for Taste Card and I was saying, look, you know, I've come in as an influencer to do some filming for Taste Card. Just wanted to let you guys know. Hope that's okay. You know, you guys don't have to be in the video, but I'm going to be filming the food. I'm going to be filming the environment and, you know, it will be posted on TikTok. And they were like, oh, of course, of course, of course. You would have thought that if you knew there was an influencer in your
little bit more effort,
you might have put in a little bit of effort. So, I mean, the first thing that we complained about was they said to us that there wasn't any. We had one lady who has the biggest thing where she doesn't like cheese. She hates cheese. And on their menu, it didn't state on one of their dishes. She was about to order it, and a good job she asked. She said, "Is there any cheese in this?" And the lady said, "Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so. It doesn't say there's any cheese in there."
They're big time. They're big time. I'm going to interrupt you there because they're big time. That's not just poor service. That's like you have to list for allergies.
Exactly. Because imagine if she was, I mean, she wasn't allergic to cheese. She just hated it. But it didn't say that there was cheese in the sauce.
Someone else might be.
And it was a white wine sauce. Not something you would expect there to be cheese in. But she went and asked the chef, and the chef said, yeah, there's cheese in it. So that was the first thing that we were pretty annoyed about. We then had another lady join our party and she waited, despite me asking, she waited for nearly 40 minutes for her order to be taken. So she ate well after everybody else. And the food was dry. It was disgusting. It wasn't great. When it came to, because obviously I had the Taste Card thing, like I was trying to get the discount for Taste Card, and then their internet wasn't working, so they couldn't take it off. And I said, I've come here specifically to film for this company. Yeah. I am not leaving here without that discount, please. So they had to manually do it, but it was honestly, it was shambles.
And money off. And did you get money off for the poor
No,
service?
we didn't. We should have done, shouldn't we?
I'll tell you how you do it.
Yes, please. Yes, please do.
I would say restaurants are probably one of the hardest to complain about, because I always say complain in writing. And because then you've got the record and the evidence should you need to go anywhere else, if it was to an ombudsman or court.
Yeah.
But obviously in a restaurant, you need to complain at the time. So it is more difficult, but you ask to see the manager and you say, under the Consumer Rights Act 2015, I am entitled to services that are carried out with reasonable care and skill. So therefore, if your meals all come out at different times, that's not been carried out with care and skill, has it? Because if they're skilled, they're at a restaurant, everyone's meal should come out at the same time. So that's a clear breach. So, but because your food came and you ate it, also if you're gonna complain about the food, because that's what I often hear about people, well, they ate all the plate and they go, oh, well, I didn't like it. Well, you ate it all. You know, if you're going to complain about the meal because of the food quality, then don't eat it.
No,
you can't have it both ways. You can't eat and complain about it.
That's where having a cake and eat it comes from, doesn't
it? Exactly. But when it's that service, it says that you should get some redress. Like, you know, you're not going to get 50% off for that, but you should get something. Even if it's to say, can we have free teas and coffees? You know, if they say, you know, what do you want? Then it could have been that. So for example, for something like Taste Card, they're going, well, we're already giving you the 50% off. And so, well, just give us free teas and coffees. Because that's not right. And by the way, you're breaking the law by not having allergens on your menu.
That's more concerning, isn't it? Very concerning. I tell you who
we'll have a little conversation about that after this.
Yes, yeah, I'll tell you who are really good though. TGI Fridays now they're called, but they are really good. Like, I mean, the amount of times I've complained in theirs probably means they aren't that great to start with, maybe. But they are always really good, and they always take whatever you complain about, they always take off the bill. You
see, this is what I say, because I also work with businesses about how they handle complaints and how to improve customer service. And I say, look, people accept that mistakes are made, or you know, that things go wrong. It's how you deal with them that matters. So, you know, when I quite often get small businesses come to me and go, how do I deal with this complaint? How do I deal with that? And it's always because they haven't had good terms and conditions in there to start off with, because they always think they're not going to get complaints. Don't believe any company that says they never get complaints, because it's, you know, unless they do a few one-to-one only. If you're a product-based or service-based and you're serving more than one-to-one, then you are going to get complaints, even if it's from people who are assholes.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah,
you will get those, and there will be some genuine ones, because actually you're just saying I'm 100% perfect. If you're saying you're never going to get complaint, you're 100% perfect, are you? Unlikely. And
it's good for companies to get complaints, because how else do you improve your service?
Well, this is it, and I always say it's good feedback. So whether it's a small business who haven't got their terms and conditions in place and they don't actually know how to do it, you know, deal with it legally or morally, sometimes that the first stage is to make sure that they have all those in place. And then when you get the complaint, I always say to people, exceed the expectations. Yeah. So if the legal minimum is a full refund, give them a full refund and a discount on the next order. If their legal minimum is a repair on something because it's more than 30 days since they purchased it, give them a repair and a discount. Or if you've provided really, really, really poor service, maybe send a bouquet of flowers. And then ask for the review, because if somebody is looking at two businesses and they're both the same price, and you can't see anything different, you know, you're particularly eco-friendly and you're going to have the same kind of carbon footprint, you know, what are you going to go on? And they're all good reviews. And then you have a review that says a mistake was made, but they dealt with it really well. And I was really pleased with how they did X, Y, and Z. Who are you going to go with? Because you're going to think, well, if something goes wrong, they're going to deal with it well.
They're going to sort it out. Yeah, exactly.
Sort it out. So it gives the customer that sense of security that it's unlikely that something will go wrong, very unlikely. But if it does, I know it's going to get dealt with really well. And so that puts you above competitors, just that giving customers security. And so in the restaurant trade, that's the same, because it comes out that somebody's, how was your meal? Oh, it was a bit rubbish, but they dealt with it really well. Somebody's going to go back to that restaurant. If you go to go and say, oh, I went to this restaurant, but they were really bad on this, I won't be going back again. They're losing customers. And that's what the companies don't see, you know, because it costs 5 times as much, more than 5 times as much to get a new customer as it does to retain one. So why aren't you working on retaining your customers and giving them poor service, giving them good service and putting it right when you haven't? Because that's going to be cheaper than advertising and getting people.
Absolutely.
So complaints are really important.
They are a way of life. So if somebody had a complaint, say, and I expect this is probably going to be a really, really big one at the moment, they've been overcharged for their energy and they know they've been overcharged for their energy. What would be the first step that you would recommend to somebody that they take?
Yeah, now that's really difficult, because I had somebody come to me and it was, and that was probably a complaint to me, because I had a template letter for this is how you complain about overcharging. And he came back and he said, well, this won't do, this, I'm being charged this and this, and it doesn't help about that. But he wasn't being overcharged. So you need to be very clear.
Yeah. Just
because we're all being charged a heck of a lot of money for our bills doesn't mean to say they're wrong. So, you know, so I had to point that out to him, and then he went very quiet. So again, dealing with complaints, he must say, well, actually, it is this, but you can still use it. This is how you check. This is how you check your bill. So you check your bill, and I can't say off the top of my head, but on my website I have got how you check kilowatts by whatever it is.
Yeah,
and it is very easy. I can give you the link for that, how you check.
I used to work in energy, and even I could do it, and I'm terrible at maths. So
it is very easy. And I can't remember the equation, but it's basically the kilowatt and the price per kilowatt, and you add the standing charge. And it is that those bills are sometimes wrong. Again, because the energy company, there are thousands and hundreds and thousands of millions of customers. Even if they only make mistakes on 1% of their customers, it's still going to be a lot. So you need to absolutely check your bill that it's right. And then if it's not, then you write to the company and say, this is what I found. I don't believe this is accurate. You know, please correct my bill. Now, if they don't and you're still not happy with it, you can go to the Energy Ombudsman. So you've got 8 weeks from the date of the complaint to take it, or you ask the company for a deadlock letter and then you can take it less than 8 weeks. That's free to do it online, and then they will make a decision based on all the evidence. And that goes the same with communications. So you'd go to the Communications Ombudsman if the same thing happened and you had a complaint about your broadband or your mobile phone.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really great advice, Helen. Thank you. You know, that I think a lot of people stop themselves from complaining because they don't want to cause people bother. What would you recommend to people in that situation?
My book, 101 Habits of an Effective Complainer, because that I mean, joking aside, that it does go through some of that mindset stuff. Because you basically have to get into your mind, you've paid £30 for that kettle, right? Yeah. And it's broken after 2 weeks. Why would you go and buy a new one? Why? A product under the Consumer Rights Act 2015 has to last a reasonable length of time. Is 2 weeks for a kettle a reasonable length of time? No, it is not. So you would ask for a full refund because it's less than 30 days. After 30 days, they can offer repair or replacement, but there should be no cost to you, no sending it off to the manufacturer. Your contract is with the company, so always go to the company. Yeah. But it can be really difficult if, for example, you've bought your kettle from a certain electrical shop. Let's call them Murray's. So say there's a shop called Murray's, and we all know them. Yeah, and they might be quite difficult in trying to get the refund. You just have to keep asserting your rights, and you usually find mentioning the Consumer Rights Act 2015 cuts through all the fob-offs, and they'll get quite often. And do shop assistants know about this act, or does it just terrify the crap out of them so much that they go, okay, have some money? Well, I don't know. I think it's different in different places. I mean, they should know. It should be part of the training, but a lot of stores don't have that ethos of making sure that they're empowering staff to know. So it is about just making sure that you know, and then say, well, if you don't know, go and find somebody who does. Yeah, that's the manager or whoever. But if they're on the customer service team, they absolutely should know about it, because they should know about it, because somebody might come up and say, under the Consumer Rights Act 2015, I'm entitled to a refund, and it's 7 years old. They're not. It lasts for 6 years. You can go to a small claims court or any court up to 6 years, 5 years in Scotland. So, you know, it's in their interest and as well for the people that are trying it on. So absolutely, yeah, they should know, but you know, they don't always, but they absolutely should know. Brilliant. So where can people buy your books, and how do people find you? Well, in the usual places, but if you would like to support a small business, you can get it from my website, and I will give you a 15% discount with Mad 15. Amazing. Yes, so you'll get the Mad 15 discount and off anything off the site, and I will sign it if you let me know what you would like me to sign in it. I'll just sign any old stuff. Yeah, so that's the How to Complain, the Essential Consumer Guide to Getting Refunds, Redress and Results. You can get off there, and 101 Habits of an Effective Complainer. And if you want to work really, really quickly, there are templates that you can purchase and download, but they are actually all in the book. So I would say, you know, there's 60. Buy the book. There are more than 60 templates in the book, so it will pay for itself. But unless you want something done that minute, it might be quicker for you. But you can find that on my website, thecomplainingcow.co.uk. Amazing. And social media? At Complaining Cow on Twitter. Yeah. The Complaining Cow on Facebook and Instagram. Amazing. And we can see you in like all the press all the time, because you're just a PR superstar. Yeah, so I'm a journalist now, so I do lots of sort of case studies and lots of consumer advice and stuff, and I pop up here and there on the radio and telly sometimes.
Amazing. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much for educating us
You're
on
very
how to
welcome.
complain effectively. I feel like we are very much more now able to go and do this as a nation.
Well,
So
the key points are always in writing. Consumer Rights Act 2015, be objective and let them know what it is you want. Quite often companies will go, well, you've just done a rant, so don't do a rant, but I don't know what it is they want. So you're making it easier for a company to deal with you if you tell them exactly what it is. Is it a refund? Is it a partial refund? Is it just an apology? Quite often it's just an apology. And then end it with what you will do if they don't give you a satisfactory response, which might be going to a small claims court or an ombudsman or sharing the details on a forum. And those sort of 5 top tips will normally get you your refund or redress.
brilliant. I don't think this is going to be the last we'll see of you. I definitely want you to come back on again because I think that was really super interesting. But for everybody else, stay tuned, come back next time. And this has been Mad About Money. I'm Maddy Alexander-Grout. You can find me on my website, madaboutmoneyofficial.co.uk. And of course, if you're listening to this on YouTube and you haven't already, download the Mad About Money official app as well. We'll see you next time.